Hello, I'm Emma-Louise Coffey and you're welcome to The Dairy Edge, the Teagasc Dairy podcast. We're bringing you the latest information, insights and opinion to improve dairy farm performance. We continue our conversation with agri-consultant Matt Ryan, where we discuss practices dairy farmers have adopted in an effort to achieve technical excellence. To start, Matt, can you tell us about the evolution of the grazing season?
Do you ever go back on farmers' journals into the 60s and 70s? Like Cork, I hate admitting it, dairy farming in Cork were special. They were always ahead of the curve, you know. They were supposed to be making silage. J.B. Rowan was, when I was in 67 was talking about making silage. But the guys in Cork, their fathers had made silage in the mid-50s. So that'll tell you how far they were. So basically, there were some tremendous farmers in Cork, and they were, you know, if you look at the journal, they were putting on nitrogen. Okay, it's maybe it's a dirty word now, but they were putting on nitrogen maybe in very early January to grow grass for early grass. So we were in a fairly good position in grassland management. On Forest Solution set up in Moorpark in the early 70s, into the 90s, into the 60s, and it began to make a massive contribution, bringing forward New Zealand practices, paddock fencing, roadways, water, and stuff like that. So those are the things that led to pretty good grassland management. But then, you know, we continued with that into the late 80s, and at that stage, I suppose you're asking yourself where more to go. I went with a discussion group to New Zealand in 1993. It was mind-blowing. I suppose I was never out of the country to see other people's work, and it was mind-blowing. So the biggest thing we came back with from there was extended grazing, the spring rotation planner, and believe it or not, the Jersey cow or the crossbred. Took a long time for the Jersey cow to come into vogue. But in 1993, I spoke at a grassland in 1994, I think, down in Waterford, promoting the extended grazing. And I had a small little survey done among my group, my discussion group. Half of them did extended grazing, half of them didn't. And I actually, in my own way, came up with an advantage of nearly a pound in of it per day, which kind of still holds good. But what extended grazing to me, when I was a kid in East Limerick on a wet farm, we were, you know, our cows were not going out to grass until well into April and maybe even May sometimes. So to me, extended grazing was a lot more than getting cows out in February. It was getting cows out on your own farm 1 to 2 weeks ahead of where you are at present, and keeping them out longer by 1 to 2 weeks. And I never got tied up in knots over the 1st of February, even though that's the perception that came across, but it was each guy bringing himself forward. So that was, to me, that was, and subsequently then, you know, we had measuring of grass. AgriNet did a fantastic job on promoting grassland measurement, and there were other groups. I eventually, when I was program manager, got Abigail Ryan on a program there in the early 2000s or 2000s to encourage grassland measurement, and that has, thanks to German Seeds, they helped promote it. We were in trouble only for that, and it has continued on to pasture based today. So we have great data, great way of knowing when to put on nitrogen, when not to put on nitrogen, when to cut grass, or do things that were so much off the cuff in the past.
And it's funny you say that, Matt. The turnout was April or May, and it's funny when you think about that, because early spring grazing is so commonplace now. And for me and my time farming, it's very much the cows get out as they calve, and for people on more challenging ground, that is maybe the middle of February. Like, they've clawed it back through March and now into the month of February. So everyone has benefited from early spring grazing, and as you say, that £1 of an advantage per day. I think at the moment that's €2.70 per cow per day. day, as Grass 10 call it. I suppose another focus area that monumental improvements have been made is in terms of animal genetics, and I suppose the EBI and the support material that comes along with that on Herd Plus has shown a steady improvement in cow performance in that time. Can you tell us about the bold statement of the Protein 350, that competition that was released in the noughties?
It was an endeavour. You're paid for kilograms of fat and kilograms of protein, and protein was particularly low in Ireland, coming from a dairy Shorthorn cow, then a British Friesian cow. And so basically it was an endeavour because protein is so important. So, Brian Wickham came into, I think it was early 2000, 2001, 2 or 3, I can't remember exactly. I was a program manager, came into during that time, and I'd like to think that my team of dairy specialists were very much associated with its promotion. It is phenomenal to think. Sorry, in 1993, they were beginning to expand dairy into the South Island, and they were able to buy cows from the North Island without ever seeing the cows. I thought, given our background, you would think this was lunacy. But because they had the figures and all the data on the cows, they were able to do that. So today, I run a small, for my group of people, I don't charge any money. I let guys buy and sell cows themselves. But today you could buy a cow 90, 100 and 200 miles away from you without seeing them, they're weighing it or whatever, because you have all the figures there about them. And if you could get the weights, you had everything. That's all. It's mind-blowing to think you can do that. So just to go back on the Protein 350, I have a lovely little chart of how do you risk manage volatility in milk price. You can argue before you could change co-ops very easily. Can't do it so easily now. You can argue all day with the co-op about it, that you're not getting paid your quantity, the right amount of milk, right amount of money for your milk. But there's only really one way of doing it that you have control. And if you don't increase the predicted difference for fat and protein, you are at nothing. So my target presently is 9% solids from per cow per year. Now we're a long way off that. That means 5% fat for the cows and 4% protein. And lo and behold, I have somebody that's going to beat that 9% this year. It's amazing. 4% fat for 4% protein milk. Isn't it something else? And that guy is after getting very close to 60 cents a litre for milk in the recent past. So consequently, he's milking on this autumn. So basically what do we do? We're not, I do a thing, and I say one group, I would always classify them as average. But I can tell you they're not bad grassland managers. The grassland managers came historically from the 70s. I'm guaranteed that for you. Plenty of nitrogen, and then you eat it before it gets too strong. Any fool would know that. And so that the biggest thing was the genetics. And it's shocking to think today, Emma-Louise, that over 40% of replacements coming into the dairy herd in Ireland are from stock bulls. That is shocking. And when you think of the environmental benefit of the based on EBI of each €10, we should have a campaign to sort that out. But we went on a very solid campaign. The various AI stations bought into Brian Wickham's proposal. A bit of a row, and Brian Wickham was a tremendous man to pull that through. But so it's all down to genetics as far as I'm concerned, because we were never really bad at grassland management. I know we can tweak it and get a little bit out of it, but so genetics is it, and it's the thing that people should control at present. I have a son who is 6'8", and I'm 5 foot something, and my 5'8" or 9 or 10, and my wife is 5'9" or something. And you'd wonder where we got that fella. And I tell the story when anybody asks me how do we manage it. So I say it's a thing called hybrid vigor. So when you mate the best to the best, you get a 20% improvement in size and growth and stuff like that. And as Moorpark have proven, the same goes for crossbreeding. Might be it's a problem, but we can overcome all the problems of the Jersey with sex semen where we are now. Yeah,
it's interesting, Matt. You talk about one of your farmers who's totally pushing the boundaries and has hit that 4% protein. But as I say, from what I understand, when the Protein 350 competition was launched, it was, it's something we'll never achieve. And as I see it now, the average farmer in the country is at 350. And that, there's obviously a range with that. But if there are some farmers on the cusp of 4% protein, I suppose on the hybrid vigor, and you have mentioned it, crossbreeding, something that you would observed in New Zealand in the early 90s, something that has been a real slow burner in Ireland, a really steady, small amount of farmers who continue to do so. Do you think the benefits that we have seen in genomics takes out the role of crossbreeding in the country?
It probably does in a way, although my own bias is it doesn't. But I really want to concentrate, on people because, I think it's close on 87% of the Irish farmers or 85% plus, haven't gone down that route. So I'm concentrated presently on that principle I'm after giving you, mate the best to the best. So there are black and white cows on your farm that have good genetics for solids. And I'm after going through 80 of my clients in the last 2 weeks, and I'm after compiling a list of 20 bulls that will bring you 20 Friesian bulls, or black and white bulls, that will bring you to my target there of my targets actually on predicted difference, Emma-Louise, are 0.27 for fat, percent for fat, and 0.17 for protein. And there are about 25 bulls from the list I saw on my clients used last year. It's phenomenal when you think of it, that have would improve the percentage fat and protein to near those targets. As well as I like a medium-sized cow of 540 to 560 kilos. And that's a maintenance figure on your EBI report of around 20-ish, give or take, up or down. So I have used that criteria, as well as, of course, I'm obsessed with cow fertility. So those are a little aside, but you have to pick really good cows. The science of farming, I love the concept of the science of farming, and the science of farming is being able to have time to pick your best cows. A couple of groups I have involved in the last 2 nights, they have set up a subcommittee to pick the bulls, the best Friesian bulls and the best Jersey bulls, and if people don't want to use Jersey, that's fine. I don't want to go into any argument on that, because you can do it with selection on the Friesian.
And Matt, the final thing I wanted to ask you about in terms of the technical side of dairy farming is discussion groups. It's something that has cropped up throughout our conversation, and way back from when you talk about that kind of impromptu machinery discussion group in Leitrim in the early 70s. But talk us through, you talk about working on establishing discussion groups at a wider scale in Ireland, and how that came about, and was it a soft landing or was it difficult at the start?
So I started in Laois in 1969, and it was actually on hindsight that I realised that I was in a discussion group in Monmelick. It was very, very mixed. I suppose there was a very big social element in it. There was dairy farmers, cattle farmers, a pig farmer, and believe it or not, a man with horses. So and I was really intimidated by it. But looking back, it was a useful experience, and consequently I went to Leitrim. And so then I did my masters, and there was the Blackwater discussion group a long time on the go, and in Fermoy, and I came back from doing my masters, and I was totally convinced of the merit of farmers learning from each other and supporting each other. So I began to put together my names in my area, and eventually I ended up with a Demo discussion group, which is cross border 3 counties, there was a very, very, very big issue, I can tell you, in the end of the 80s on that point. But anyway, we got it done. So in so basically there are a lot of groups. There are a number of groups that have developed during that few months there, a few years there. And then in 1993, I was made discussion group specialist, and I traveled all over Ireland trying to promote it. And I'm sure I antagonized some people and stuff like that, but I think they are a phenomenal benefit to people. Everybody seems to think it's all associated with technical knowledge, but I see discussion groups as the source of personal development. And I emphasize that personal development. I look at guys from when they came into groups to going out. You could look at very, very shy guys coming in and going out to be able to get on the committee of their local co-op or their farm organization and speak up. So it's tremendous. It has been tremendous, yeah. So.
And for farmers who are listening today, Matt, who, are members of discussion groups, maybe that shy member, or, maybe in the group, but feel I could get more from this. How do you think farmers could engage in their discussion group to get more benefit for themselves?
What is really, really important is, when a thing is gone, I say, most of the way, we ask, how's it going? And people say, oh, Jesus, that's the same old thing all the time, people have to be very careful of that comment. Like, when a thing is gone, it's gone, and you can't get it back. So there are 2 or 3, as I see the personal development, there are a couple of elements in there. You're meeting people, you're chatting, you're looking at the countryside from a different viewpoint. You're taking like we did in service training when I was in Teagasc. We give a day each month the advice to train. Can you tell me why farmers don't go and give themselves 1 day a month to go for some bit of training and updating for themselves? Because advisors they're because the research are ahead of the posse, and then there are some farmers also in different streams, and they're in contact with other things, and people share so much stuff in that. Like, it's basically a sharing of knowledge. So the way I think that, that I like the concept of buzz groups. You divide the group up into, for any task into small groups, and let the shy guy report from the small buzz group, or the 3 guys that are there making suggestions. He can't be blamed for the suggestions coming from that little subgroup, even if they're radical,
It's fair to say, Matt, you have been a mentor to many farmers and those who have worked within the industry, me for one. But for your career, who has mentored you along the way?
Believe it or not, obviously my parents had a bit of an influence, some in the early stages, but I went working to Carlow, and a guy called Kevin Brennan, he's from Lockmore, Castellani. It's so ironic in the way Lockmore have to go on president. But I was very unsure of myself and about going to college, and I thought I wouldn't have been able to go. But God, he said, you should take it, because 10 years previously, he had come to the same crossroads in his life and didn't move. Nobody encouraged him. And Kevin Brennan asked me to make that move, and unfortunately he passed away there 2 years ago. So, but that to me was my big turning points. Subsequently, I met great people along the way. Alex Sweeney was a tremendous guy in Laois. He was the CEO in Laois, and he gave us great freedom. Because you're young and inexperienced, coming out of college with no knowledge, meeting great farmers and so on. And one of his things was, everybody says you should learn to stand on your own 2 feet. And but Alex's comment was, you should learn to stand on 1 foot, because if you can't stand on 1 foot, you can't put on your weldings at the back of the car. So it's another little reminder of how important to be yourself, to stand up for yourself and be confident in yourself, So yeah, the biggest subsequent change in my life was that I was confident enough as an advisor. I worked in your general area, And but the biggest change entirely was in my life was being involved in the Demo discussion group. God, I was challenged out of my mind with very, very good farmers to come up with ideas, to stay in touch technically. And it was phenomenal. My development was phenomenal during that, from in the late 80s to well into the 90s, yeah, and that. So I would say, I've not to mention any other names, but most of them were coming from the discussion group, was phenomenal influence on myself. In case I don't get a chance, I have a number of people I mentor, but I want to congratulate Hazel Costigan, who was, she used to come around with me on various trips. I gather recently she has got a PhD, Dr. Costigan, sounds a great ring. And I think she has got a new offer of a job in Moorpark, so I want to congratulate her. It's lovely for me, and my son is involved in rugby, and only for the mentoring he got from other people. I like to give back that sort of thing to people, and it's flattering to be asked for your advice and your help and stuff like that. So yeah, so all young people should seek out a mentor. Really, really, really important. Good farmer, stick with him. Yeah.
And I think, Matt, it's fair to say, like, for people who are listening in today, you would see it, and I have seen it along the way too. Farmers are so generous with their time, and if they can be of help to others. Matt, this has been a hugely enjoyable conversation, and it's phenomenal to think that, where we are now is so different to where we are not so long ago, and it was great to take that journey with you today. Thank you, Matt.
Welcome, Emma-Louise.
That's it for this week's episode of the Dairy Edge podcast, and my thanks to Matt Ryan for joining me on this week's show. We wish you all a happy new year, and we look forward to you listening in to more Dairy Edge interviews in 2022. I'm Emma-Louise Coffey, and join me next time for your Dairy Edge.